Hello everyone. So I had a couple of French games recently that I enjoyed and wanted to analyze. Thought was interesting. These are kind of for amateurs, I guess. I'm not an expert at all. There are other videos for kind of expert stuff, but I think that we need to play for our level. What I mean by that is grandmasters almost never play the King's Gambit, for example. But for amateurs, it's fair game. It's very interesting, and also you need to learn it. You need to learn the ins and outs because if you want to be able to play, if your opponent plays one e4, you want to be able to play e5 as a response. You need to be prepared for the French Gambit, which means not only should you be prepared and know what to do, but I think it's also good to play it from the other side to really understand it. I think just playing certain openings just from one side will limit your perspective in the long run. And if you want to get good in the long run, I think that playing openings from both sides is good. And using the King's Gambit as an example, once you've properly learned the ins and outs to know that, to really feel the weaknesses of that game for white, then to one, know, really understand the ins and outs, really know the opening well for both sides, and two, you really feel that weakness. You feel why it's bad. You have an intuition for it, and you're well prepared for what to do with it. Then you can move on and say, okay, I've had enough. I've sort of mastered that opening. I don't need to play it anymore. But yeah, for amateurs, there's a lot of stuff that's okay that GMs wouldn't play. But anyway, so the French. So I've been playing this just a few games recently, and sometimes I run into this move, which is pretty bad and weakening, I think, for white. Other moves you'll run into are moving the knight here. So they moved it here. What is this, the Tarrasch? I forget. I think it's the Tarrasch, and I think that here is the classical. And so I went here, then he moves here, move here. I'll get into the analysis of the database and the computer next. But first I just want to talk about the opening, just giving my impressions. For both sides, I think everything seems like logical moves here. Now this was a kind of a mistake, but you know, it looks okay for me for now. I'll analyze it more later, but I played this. Takes, and I feel already that this is uncomfortable for white. Let's look from white's perspective. This pawn structure, kind of in white's face, is looking uncomfortable. I'm threatening to move this here, then the bishop will have to come back here. So we see natural looking move, castles. I move the pawn here, he moves it back here. And so this is, it feels claustrophobic. I have way more space on the queen side. He's got more pieces developed, but they're all sort of bunched together, clustered, blocking. It feels claustrophobic. He wants to get this bishop out, and so I guess the correct move I think was here, and then try to get this bishop out. But I just like this more for black here. I think that it's very uncomfortable for white. Black has much more space. And I'll briefly kind of look at what happens with the game. I mean, so it was here. He's got to figure out a way to protect this pawn. So take a look at that. There's really no good way to protect this pawn. And he just kind of gave up on it. And so I'm up a piece. I've got this very strong center. I've got more space on the queen side. I really like black here. So how do we get into this uncomfortable position for white? I mean, things seem kind of natural, but here, and so that's why I made this move, is because after taking here, and he takes here, this pawn becomes a liability instead of a strength. And Yeah, I'm not even sure exactly what he should have done instead, but now let's figure that out. Let's look at the database and the computer and see what's going on here. Let me max zoom out. All right, let's see. What do I do here? Hold on. Okay. Move this over. So, all right. This move, I gotta make sure I'm looking at what database I'm looking at. This is Lichess. Let's look at the masters. This is the standard move, so we're okay so far. This is, I believe it's the Tarrasch, right? Does it say? Doesn't, I don't know how to figure out the name of the opening from this screen, but I think it's the Tarrasch. And so I should have, so it's already showing 0. And although the database shows an advantage for white here, and that it's playable for white. But the computer says it's equal, so that's interesting. But I would believe the database here. So let's look at kind of some standard moves. What happens? Knight to c6. So it's putting a lot of pressure on these pawns here, trying to argue that white has overextended by putting the pawn here. d3, queen to b6. Castles. Takes. あ、今録画してるけど。終わったら行くよ。ごめんね。Anyway, takes. Alright, so this is mainline stuff, and it, from an amateur perspective, should be good for both sides, or playable for both sides. And I mean, just to get an idea of that, let's look at here, see if that's true. Yeah, roughly playable for both sides. Let's go back earlier on. I think that black has better options, but actually, I mean, even just playing the French. Let's go back to the Masters database. Playing the French, sorry, it's not that one. We want e6. Yeah, it seems playable for Masters. And usually we'll run into d4. French almost always proceeds like this. And then, so there's the classical, there's the Tarrasch. Moving to e5 is basically a mistake for white, giving up considerable advantage. And then if they do that, you're supposed to proceed with c5. So let's look what happens there. c3, knight to c6, knight f3, bishop to d7, or queen to b6, let's say here. It's about equal. The database is showing much better for bishop to d7. I prefer that move as well, but let's just do a few more moves. I don't want to get too deep into one line, but it seems okay for black, and that white has given up some of its advantages. And but to be honest, I didn't used to play the French much. This feels claustrophobic to me for black already, but I want to try playing more openings, so I do want to try playing this stuff. So this e5 move, not good for white. So you're generally going to run in. So if they play that, you're happy. You have a good game on your hands. And so then we want to mainly look at these two openings. Again, Tarrasch is what I ran into. And Now let's take a look now for amateurs at these ratings for lead chess. So I think c5 is a very logical move. Well, anyway, you will have to. There's a lot more to say about the French. I can't say everything here, but lots of good games that can happen. I just want to add, if you're running into the classical, so you can see here, so for the amateurs game, it's almost always, what it's showing is a pretty good game for black here for amateurs. And I believe that is that in these games, it tends to be that black has much more experience in these openings. You have a lot of people who might be playing the French as much as they can, whereas if you're playing 1e4 for white, you're going to run into all kinds of responses, like the Sicilian, King's Indian, all kinds of different things. And French is only a minor percentage. So what I'm saying is the black players here usually have more experience in these openings, so that's probably why it's coming out pretty solid. And so for amateurs, the classical is going to be the best here, it looks like, according to the database. Anyway, and let's look at the masters again here. For masters, most frequent is this classical defense. It's roughly the same for Tarrasch and classical. And then what you're often going to see here is this bishop to b4. But there are other options. So I don't want to get too into the details of the main lines. Just know that, of course, these lines are playable for both sides for amateurs. And what's nice about playing this is you'll often run into people playing this, and then I think they're in trouble. I mean, like if you look at, I think, okay, so saying that they're in trouble is going too far, but you know, black has the advantage here for amateurs, and you have kind of these straightforward ways of putting pressure and having a nice game where you put your pawn here, and then later this knight is going to come up. You look at maybe this break. You need to be careful with this break because you'll have, for example, make some natural looking moves. Let's see what the computer has to say. Let's say so there are these ideas of the queen coming here, but what the queen wants, then there's this response, right? The queen wants a piece that can hit this square. You see this in lots of different openings, and sometimes the knight is here or something and can take it, but in this case we have ideas of our bishop being here to hit that square. So if they put the bishop here, say I put my knight here, let's see what happens here. Yeah, now we're in trouble for black because of this hole here. You can see that in the database, you can see what the computer is suggesting. Now we don't have this move here. Now it's saying move the king away, top two moves. And if we do this, computer shows a huge advantage for white. We cannot take now with the pawn. I'm going to switch this off now. So yeah, so you got to watch out for these ideas with this break. So be careful when you if you play this move. But I think that this is a common break to do. What is that? F6. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know exactly, but I'll just wrap it up. It's a nice opening to play. You often run into this e5 move where you should have interesting games where you might have an advantage here for black in amateur games. Other than that, generally you have either this Tarrasch or the classical. Now even the Tarrasch for the amateur games is, let's look at the database. Okay, is this? Yeah, it's okay. Advantage for white. C5. Yeah, you're gonna have a good game. Now let me just remind myself about this game I played. Ah, yes. Let's see here. Knight f6. So not c5 right away. One of the nice things about this is you lure forward that e5 move. And one little mistake like this, they gotta know to, well, I think they've got to know what to do here. Because this knight to f3 is looking like a very natural move, but you can see we're good. This is, for the black pieces, we've done well so far in the opening, and we're gonna have, so it's blocking in this queen idea that we had before, so but we're not ready to play f6 yet, but so generally they have these three possibilities here. Again, try to remember, move the knight here, they generally push this forward vast majority of the time, put the knight here. Are there other options? Generally we're going to do this. There are other options. And f4, c3. Yeah, you're going to run into people who know the main lines, for sure. It's not, nothing is totally easy in chess, but it's a fun opening. I just wanted to give a kind of introduction to people who, because the thing is, when you watch these videos of a serious, good analysis by a master or whatever, they go pretty deep into all these main lines, and it gets a bit overwhelming. I just wanted to provide something a bit different, where just a basic general overview, where you're gonna mainly run into three possible moves here. Classical. You also have the exchange, but the exchange, so I'll talk about that a bit as well. But generally you run into classical, this e5 move, which we like, or Tarrasch, which is knight to d2. Interesting that you can see that those four moves are the vast majority of situations. Interesting that the Tarrasch is not played that much in amateur games. If we switch to masters, you can see Tarrasch is pretty mainstream. So I think a lot of people don't know about it, I guess. Now going back to kind of amateur games, and so the exchange line, you can see here it shows an advantage for black, but I don't think that it's objectively an advantage. I think that the black players are more prepared, and yeah, they're more prepared. They play these positions more often, because this is just like, objectively speaking, let's look at the masters here. So it's interesting. It's showing an advantage for black. I think even at this level, it's just that the black players have an advantage. I mean, this is a symmetrical position where white is next to move. I have to believe that objectively this is, it's rough, it's very even, I guess. It should be slightly better for white, and it's roughly even. But the fact that the white player chose this route means that they're probably uncomfortable in the French, and usually the person with the black pieces has experience playing these. So it is viable for both sides, and you'll run into it if you play the French, but it's not something we need to be afraid of. So it's something worth studying in more depth, for sure. It happens. But you can start playing the French and just be aware of these sort of, that you're going to run into mainly 4 possibilities here, including exchange, e5, classical, and Tarrasch. And then, yeah, go and watch some videos about the classical French and the Tarrasch and just French in general and get an idea. Do that. Play some games in whatever order. Just already start playing games with it. And then watch some videos and play more games and then study the main line. It's all a bit time consuming, but if you, one, it's fun. 2, if you put in all that time and play a bunch of games and watch lots of videos about it, you will be pretty good at the French. And if we look at, again, these amateur games, you can see the black pieces are not doing too bad here. Just a 2% advantage for white. But to be honest with you, though, I think, you see, in the amateur games, though, white doesn't have that much of an advantage to start. 5% for D4 games, and for E4 games, 1%. So I don't know. I guess I'm not really trying to advocate for the French per se. I'm just saying it's, I don't know what I'm saying. I'm just giving, there's no point to this video whatsoever. I'm just giving a introduction to people who just aren't familiar with it. That's all. And the way this game actually went. So this, it pains me that this is a mistake because I feel like it was part of what really unraveled my opponent a bit. The computer, does this have, there's not many games here. I don't know. F6 doesn't like it. It's very playable as an amateur. So I will play it more, I think, because I need to learn more of the ins and outs here. I don't realize why this is, so it's clearly saying that this is not, wait. Oh yeah, it's not very good for black to do this. But I do not feel, because this knight is blocking this queen from coming out, I guess intuitively I don't feel the disadvantage. And so I want to play this game and kind of learn the hard way. That's what I'm kind of about. That if I do not perceive the danger of making this move and that this is bad, I want to continue to play it until I get spanked a lot and then realize, oh, this is not a good move because these reasons. There's not many games here. You'll notice. So I'm taking my opponent out of comfortable territory. We've got 0.4 evaluation. So, but that's after some exchanges. What about here? We'll often run into this, I guess. But this is okay. This is playable. So, yeah, I think this is a playable move, even though the computer almost makes you lose a pawn for it. And the database doesn't like it. Well, it's based on 42 games, but yeah, I'll play it. If I realize why this move sucks, I will maybe post a video about it. But like I said, I don't perceive the problem with this, so I'll play it a bit. Maybe I'll even like it. Maybe I'll get good at these positions, and then I'll boost up this database for amateurs, but we'll see. That's it. Just ramblings. Sorry, the content's not that great. I have another channel you can find, Steve T, and has better content. But I'm just kind of doing streams of consciousness here, some random analysis. It's kind of quantity over quality on this one. So enjoy your day. Have a good day. Peace.